Stage 9 is the infinite ocean, and today we are doing part 2 and the final part of stage 9. Now, before we go into part 2 of stage 9, let's do a quick recap of the core messages of part 1 of stage 9. In stage 8, the soul, the river, went through tremendous effort to break past the barrier that separated its sweet water from the salt water of the ocean. Now we have video recordings on stage 8, 4 of them, which provide detailed insights into this process and how the river finally manages to merge into the ocean by achieving complete harmony and zero conflict. And then we went into some fair degree of length on the how-to part of building that harmony within us, how to achieve the zero conflict. So please review those 4 videos of stage 8. They're very important. Now in stage 9, the soul has now merged into the ocean infinite, which is its source. It is now no longer the river. While it was merging, it was in a state of duality, the river and the ocean. Now that duality is gone, and it has become the ocean infinite. It is now the source itself. In stage 9, all of the physical forms are gone. There is no body, there's no river. It is now the ocean, only the ocean. So stage 9 is a truly exalted level that the soul has attained. Now next, in stage 9 part 1 class, we covered the boundless love, which is the key attribute of stage 9, one of the key. Today we are going to do 2 more key attributes. So do visit the video recording of part 1 of stage 9, where we discuss this love in detail, and we also started working on how we draw this boundless love into our conscious material lives. And that's a highly enriching process. So once again, do look at the videos. And to refresh your memory, this boundless love is a unique type of love, which is very different to the love we feel towards our fellow beings and fellow creation. It's much deeper. This love is deep, pure, and it flows through our being in a powerful way. It is part of our life energy that emanates from the soul, and we can feel it, we can experience it in our meditation. We can feel it in our simple material activities. It is there when we seek it. We may experience it in short bursts or in constant waves. When we experience this love, know that the Creator is showing us His love. And sometimes when we are in the presence of enlightened beings or are in sacred places, we feel this love. It makes us extremely happy, and our natural emotion is to cry. And I'm sure most of us have experienced this at one point or the other in our lives. So that's a quick recap of stage 9, part 1. So now we come to the part 2, and stage 9 is so vast that its true stature and depth can only be experienced. Words can never come close to describing its true attributes. However, today we're going to discuss 2 additional aspects of stage 9, which are relevant to our material well-being and spiritual search. So I've invited our dear friendly angels, Cyrus and Luminous, to help us understand some of these complex aspects in simple forms, and they're great at doing that. So I said to Cyrus that last time we talked about absence of duality in stage 9. The soul has merged into the ocean, and it no longer has a form of any sort. It has transitioned into pure unity. And as you said before, Cyrus, this unity is not just a word. It is the truth, the absolute truth. We also refer to it as oneness. Can you help us understand this unity better? What does it entail? And Cyrus replies, there's a beautiful scripture that reveals the answer that you are seeking. He says, can you relate its words for us? And I replied, sure, I can paraphrase it as follows. The scripture says that the Creator is one. He is absolute. He is the origin. He was not created, nor does he procreate. And there is none comparable to him. So that's the scripture. The Creator is one. He is absolute. He is the origin. He was not created, nor does he procreate, and there is none comparable to him. Perfect, Cyrus says. So now let us dig deeper into this jewel of light, Cyrus says. I like this word jewel of light because that's what this scripture is actually. It's very profound. So Cyrus says, the words the Creator is one is in fact the unity we are referring to in stage 9, pure unity. When this scripture was revealed, the people of the time believed in many gods. So the literal exoteric interpretation of this scripture at the time was that there is only one Creator or one God, and therefore humanity should only focus on one Creator. However, that was the exoteric interpretation. These words have a much deeper spiritual context to consider, Cyrus says. He says the Creator is one also refers to the Creator being oneness or pure unity, and that all the creation that you see and all that you don't see is embodied in this oneness or unity. Therefore, the only thing that separates you all from one another, that separates us all from one another, are our physical bodies, which we will drop one day. And Cyrus says, you are all in essence one soul. You are the oneness. You are the pure unity, each one of you. And this unity is absolute. That means it's not divisible. It cannot be divided in any way, which is exemplified by the words of the scripture, he was not created, nor does he procreate, because he is non-divisible. He is absolutely non-divisible. So these words reinforce the depth of the unity of the Creator. He is absolute unity, and that's the ocean at stage 9. And this absolute status is proclaimed by the words, he is absolute, the origin. The word absolute is like the number 0. All numbers emanate from 0. Without 0, mathematics doesn't exist. Everything originates from 0. So 0 is the foundation or source of all numbers. The word absolute here refers to the Creator as being the source of all creation. Everything emanates from him. And this is expressed by the words, he is the origin, the source. So these words of the scripture offer a truly holistic description of unity. And this unity is indeed the ocean infinite at stage 9. So the ocean infinite is the source of every droplet ever created, if you take the analogy of water. And all droplets ultimately return to their source, the ocean. And the ocean infinite is indeed the abode that every soul seeks to reach. So Luminous added, you have all heard the words of this scripture many times and interpreted it in different ways. But today we are sharing with you how these verses actually are a direct proclamation of stage 9, the ocean, and its absolute unity. That's a beautiful explanation, I said, and about the scripture. And I said, you're so right that these words are jewels of light, because I focused quite a lot on this scripture. And I found so many different meanings, but today we are at the context of stage 9, the ocean. And I added, can I ask you one question that we as humanity have always pondered? It is a very fundamental question whose answer we have not discovered with any degree of clarity. Luminous replied, "Go ahead, ask your question." I said, Stage 9 affirms to us the absolute unity and non-divisibility of our source, our creator. We can all contemplate that further based on the knowledge that you have shared with us today. However, the question that perplexes all of us is why are souls created in the first place? Why are souls created in the first place? Why do the droplets emerge from the ocean, journey through time and timelessness, manifestation upon manifestation, only to return to the ocean once again? What purpose does this journey serve? Luminous laughed and replied, yes, it's a question that reflects the human logic, which states that everything must have a reason or a purpose. Cyrus added, he said, the concept of the soul and its journey is actually very complex. And we have simplified it for you to some extent through the analogy of the droplet. So let's build this analogy further to help you address your question at an even deeper level. And I said, great, please do so. So Cyrus said, let's get a few things straight. The ocean is the infinite reservoir of all water. Now we are looking at the water analogy. So the ocean is the infinite reservoir of all water. And every droplet of the ocean is water. Therefore, every droplet is an integral dimension of the ocean because water is the common element in both. Fair enough? I said that is clear. He said, similarly, every soul emerges from its creator. Every soul that emerges from its creator has life or life energy. And every soul is indeed an integral dimension of its creator because life or life energy is the common element between them. Just like water is to the ocean, life energy is the common element of the soul and the infinite reservoir of life, which is the creator. So Cyrus asks, do we understand all this so far? I said, yes. I can see the analogy of the water droplet and the life of the soul quite clearly here. Excellent, Cyrus says. So now let's take one step further. He says the creator is present in all creation in two ways. One is through all the souls that have been created, like all of us. And second is he is also independently present in all creation as an omnipotent presence. So these are the two ways that the creation is present in all creation, through all the souls that have been created and independently as an omnipotent presence. Cyrus continued, now let us look at souls. What function do they fulfill? He says, I would suggest to you that every soul created is an evolver. Every soul created is an evolver. Every soul is the creator himself, present in all creation. And I asked, what is an evolver? Can you help us understand that? I can understand that the creator himself is present in all creation because he is in every soul. Cyrus replied, if you want to understand what an evolver is, he says, think about it. Each one of you souls journeys through all the worlds that the creator is either already created or will create. So all you souls journey through the worlds that the creator has created. Your presence in these worlds causes events, experiences, and changes of a fundamental nature. He says, your presence in these worlds causes events, experiences, and changes of a fundamental nature. He says, your presence causes everything to evolve. Your presence causes everything to evolve. He said, look at your daily lives in your material world. Let's try and understand. He says, your thoughts and actions cause events and experiences. which then cause a continuous change in everything, because you are constantly intervening in the presence of every form of creation, either through your thoughts or through your action or through the result of events that transpire. He said, thus you are causing everything in your world to evolve without even knowing it. He said, look at genetic engineering, for example. Through your science, you are intervening in the genetic makeup of life forms. And as a result, you are triggering a change of a massive dimension that you have no clue about. That change is evolutionary and very powerful, but you are the ones doing it because you are evolvers. Your emotions are another good case in point, he says. Your strong emotions, when unleashed on others, change their lives and direct their growth in new directions. You have triggered an evolution in them, but you have no idea. All you know is you expressed a strong emotion, but you have triggered an evolution in its recipients. And this is happening amongst all the 7 billion people in this world here and all the countless souls in all the universes. So he says, or as parents, your intervention in the lives of your children governs their growth and evolution of them as beings. They follow you, they follow your examples, good and bad, and they become the people they are as a result of your interventions. You are their evolver. So he said you can find lots of such examples in your daily lives in the simplest and most complex of things. And Cyrus says from today onwards, examine every one of your interventions and you will clearly see your role as an evolver because now you are aware. Wow, I said. So we are all truly direct agents of evolution in our world. And from what you're saying, that is our role and purpose of our souls. We are the presence of the Creator in all His creation. That's what you're telling us. We are the presence of the Creator in all His creation. We are evolvers. Cyrus continued, good. Now that you get it, let us expand the role of each soul as an evolver a little bit further. For example, he said, take knowledge. You all partake in experience. You all partake in experiences that create and perfect knowledge. Not because the Creator needs this knowledge. He is the all-knowing. But each soul needs this knowledge to gain in light. And by gaining in light, it can impact the evolution of creation wherever this soul may be present. Its impact may be greater. So, knowledge is one dimension. He says then, secondly, let's look at evolution, for example, in this earth. And he said, how it occurs in this earth. And he said, and I don't mean here Darwin-style evolution. He says, we mean fundamental growth and development of intellect. He said, development of architecture, science, and arts that permanently alter or change this world. So this development of intellect, architecture, science, art, inquiry, philosophy, these permanently alter and change the world. He says, one of you invented the light bulb, another the internet, for example. And he says, you can now see how all creation is evolved through these interventions of yours on this earth and even in outer space. So true, I said I recently visited the European Space Center in Cologne in Germany. And I viewed the works of the astronauts in this space station on live camera, so I could actually see everything they were doing, all the experiments. And I could see our amazing human technologies at work out there in the space station beyond our planet. Absolutely fascinating. So Cyrus continued, he said, there are countless examples of your human interventions and you all know what they are. When you sit and contemplate, keep adding your own that you are aware of. Cyrus said next, as souls you flow with boundless love. And that too causes the other souls that you encounter to grow and evolve. So as you flow with boundless love, you cause other souls that you encounter to grow and evolve. He said this boundless love causes creation as a whole to be nurtured, and you possess it and you make it flow. And it causes the whole of creation to be nurtured at much deeper levels than basic nutrition. He said, think about it. When you pray for something, how do your prayers get answered? Through the actions of other souls. People or other forms of creation will appear in your life in response to your call of prayer, and that's how your prayer gets answered. When you pray, it doesn't just fall out of the sky. It is people, it is other souls that come as answers to your prayers. He said, soon your science will let you establish homes elsewhere in the cosmos, bringing new life to what has been dormant forever. So think of the power of evolution that each one of you is causing. He says you are all evolvers. You are all instruments of change. And he said, I've just given you a glimpse of what you as souls are doing in this material world. But there are 7 worlds, and you flow between them, causing evolution and serving your purpose wherever it may be required. So I said, someone asked me last night about a common dear friend of ours, very close to us, who had recently passed away from cancer, and he was quite young and left behind a young family. And this guy asked me, he said, was it fair? And I said, of course, look, I'm no expert on the why part, but taking up on our role as evolvers, as what we've just talked about, I suggested that maybe his role in this world as an evolver may have been complete. And he has moved on to continue with his purpose in other dimensions, for example. So we, looking here, say, oh, that was so unfair. Why did it happen? Because we all suffered that loss. But he, the soul that was him, the great soul that was him, had completed what it was doing as an evolver here, and it has moved on to another dimension to continue with its purpose and its journey. So Luminous said, you're quite right in that assertion, actually. You're beginning to get the picture now. He said, so far from what we have shared today, you can see why concepts such as ethics or caring for nature or caring for the environment, he said, these concepts are not motherhood statements. He said, they are the fundamental principles of your very existence as evolvers. They are the reason you are here. He said, you also know that through your actions, you can cause evolution of a negative nature. We all know that. And therefore, you have to strive your best not to be doing that. You should be fostering evolution in a positive way. And he said the saving grace is that in the 7 worlds, the way they work, as the way nature works in this material world, they have a way of correcting or compensating for negative evolution. Sometimes what may have happened that had been terrible at one point in time or in history, but when you take that element of time away, way down in the future, what was once bad may have ultimately helped create ways of thinking and living that seek to avoid what was bad. Sarah said, take the example of the horrible acts of a dictator like Hitler. He says his actions in history were despicable at every human level. He said, now take away the concept of time. And if you see beyond, you will see that these horrible actions may have influenced the human mindset to evolve in a direction that seeks or that strives to avoid such actions. So even negative acts can be evolutionary under a timeless scenario. So Luminous said, therefore the examples of your life that you leave behind when you move on, they are all evolutionary. Everything you've done in your life is evolutionary. And if you look at it under a timeless scenario, it all makes sense. Next, he said, if you consider souls fostering evolution in all the worlds, you can now recognize how the ocean infinite creates and causes all creation to evolve continuously. Souls such as you are instruments. You are the eyes, the ears, the presence of the Creator everywhere, serving all creation. In some worlds, you may be ruled by a mind that can set you back. But if you take that element of time away, these setbacks motivate and enable you as a soul to pursue every opportunity to overcome your setbacks and weaknesses, so that they actually motivate you, they give you a path towards perfection. And he said, this I would say to each one of you leads to your perfection as souls. So we're now getting a much wider picture here. He said, then when you reach the absolute level of perfection, you become the ocean once again at stage 9. And from there you flow to stage 10, and you finally achieve union with your source beyond that door of light, where you dissolve completely in your source. So now our journey as souls is starting to take on a very interesting dimension. Wow, I said, such an eloquent way to show us how we as souls are indeed the Creator, fostering evolution in the worlds, eternal evolution. I said, can I ask a cheeky question? So Luminous laughed and said, you don't give up, do you? I said, I'm sorry guys, but I can't help but wonder, why do we need this evolution? Why do we need this evolution? So Luminous smiled and replied, this is where human vocabulary fails when it comes to describing the basis for this evolution, because the basis is embedded in creation itself. And he said, once you reach the stage where you truly know the Creator, your question will disappear. However, he said, since you've asked the question, let me pass some thoughts your way to consider. He said, number 1, think about creation itself. Creation is dynamic and continuous. This is a fact. What does not exist today may be created tomorrow. You all understand the concept of continuous creation. Yes, I said we do. He said, now what happens to creation once it has occurred, once it has manifested? What happens to the creation? It does not exist in a random or directionless state. It has a direction. So what guides its direction and composition of every creation? What guides that? There has to be a highly intelligent force that accomplishes this. That force is evolution. You are all that intelligent force of evolution, he said, and your intelligence comes from the Creator. So you have to consider evolution as being an integral part of creation itself. When you create something in this material world, you do it with some purpose or some form of purpose. And then the events of the world and the actions of people, they cause what you have created to evolve in a direction you don't control, even though you think you do. So whatever you create also evolves. So he said, everything that was created in the universes in the past, or everything that is being created now, or everything that will be created in the future, is deeply embedded within the intelligence and force of evolution. And every soul embodies this force of evolution, each one of you does, through which it fulfills its purpose as it journeys through the universes and the worlds. He said, does that help you understand evolution from the spiritual context? Yes, I replied. Thank you very much. And I said, it is like when computers evolved. I was around when the first PC came out, and I believe I spent an exorbitant amount of money getting one of those very early computers, but all of us who were around when computers evolved, there was a little symbol that identified the chip that the computer had, like Intel Inside. For those of us who watched this, Intel Inside was the chip, and we got very used to it. And I said, Cyrus and Luminous, what you are saying to us today is that creation has its own mark, evolution inside, and we are it. Wonderful way to simplify such a complex concept. Cyrus added, we recommend you take the time to contemplate further what we have just disclosed to you about being evolvers. Ask yourselves, how can I be the best evolver that I am capable of being? For this is one of the fundamental bases of my very creation. He said, I said, your explanations have been very, very enlightening. And I thank you for this. And yes, we will contemplate now, and we will look at life with a new set of eyes, that of evolvers. And we will be more mindful about our thoughts and actions, because now we know that we are here as our purpose to cause and influence and intervene and create this evolution. So then I said, I have one final question for you about stage 9. And I said, when we talk of the Creator, we speak about light. At stage 9, the soul has merged into the ocean of light. I said, can you help us understand this light? How can we draw upon it in our material lives and in our spiritual search? How can we really make the most of this understanding to enrich our journeys? Luminous replied, he said, that's a pretty deep question. It is something that each one of you needs to discover through your spiritual search and through meditation. But now that you've asked the question, we will share some food for thought on the subject for you to contemplate. Luminous continued, he said, why do you think the material world understands the word light over most other words when it comes to describing the character, the Creator? Why is light an easily accepted term? He said it is because you all think of light as being like electric light. And he said that is fine, because this is how you understand the dispelling of darkness. When it is dark, you cannot see. So when you turn on the light, you can see. Now in spiritual terms, this word light represents eternal vision. This light is an eternal vision with absolute clarity and hence zero darkness. So unlike the light, the electric light of the material world, with this light you never need to turn it on to help you see. This light is ever present. And he said there are several basic spiritual aspects of this light. The first one is that it is absolute clarity. Therefore, there is zero darkness presence within it. Next, he said it is infinite. It is an eternal vision. And he said another dimension to this light is knowledge. Absence of knowledge is ignorance, which is synonymous with two things, darkness and absence of clarity, because ignorance is darkness and it is absence of clarity. He says when knowledge is present, there is clarity and darkness disappears, just like you turned on that light bulb. So knowledge is the other dimension for you to consider when you think of the light. And when you as a soul have gained so much knowledge, perfected knowledge, you become the absolute light, the absolute clarity, absolute perfection. And that's where you are at stages 9 and 10 and beyond. Therefore, he said you should all strive to gain knowledge and light, whatever stage you may be of the 10 stages, because it will propel you higher in your journey. He said you can rest assured of that. Then he said the next aspect of this light is pure life energy. He said, your life energy is pure, it is clear, and it embodies a power that sustains life. So he said this power also resembles light, but not light in the form of rays or singular rays or many rays. He said you can visualize this light as being evenly distributed, totally neutral, at complete equilibrium. Therefore, he said it can be characterized as pure uniformity. This light of the ocean infinite is completely uniform. Luminous added, he said, many older human cultures work with the energy of fire and its luminosity. He said they use this fire in their worship. And he said, but really, if you take the fire away and just remain with the pure energy, what would it be? It would be light, of course. So he said fire is an exoteric form of worshipping light in these older cultures. He said this brings us back to the scriptures. And the parable of light, which is the foundation of the 10 stages of the soul, he said there is more answers now that we're going to share with you, because this parable is the foundation of the 10 stages. You've encountered it from the very beginning, and you've encountered it through the journey, and now let us look at a further expanded interpretation that fits with the ocean of light now. So Luminous says, can you please relate this parable and explain your understanding of it? And I said, the parable of the light of the Creator is as if there is a niche, and in the niche, a lamp. The lamp is covered with glass. The glass shines like a brilliant star, lit by the oil of the sacred tree, the olive, neither of the east nor of the west. This oil is luminous, even though fire has scarcely touched it. Light upon light does the Creator guide unto His light those whom He chooses. And I've shared this with you before, where it took me 18 years of contemplating this parable from the first time I heard it, and I've read interpretations over interpretations, but I just could not quench my thirst, and I came to the conclusion that the only way for me to be able to interpret it with my scientific mind was to ask the Creator to show me. And so that required very focused contemplation. And then one day, when I was not thinking about it, I see the parable of light before me. And I see that the niche is, in fact, most would say that the niche is an alcove in old Arabian buildings where you put a light and it spreads through the room. But here, the niche was in the center of my forehead. And from here is where my connection with the flow of life energy resides. So when it says that the parable of the light of the Creator is as if there is a niche, and in the niche a lamp, that is the flow of life energy that keeps my body alive. And then the lamp is covered with glass. So connection to my niche, the lamp represents the light of the Creator, but it is covered with glass. And the glass, because glass is an element of the earth, silica, and it is extremely clear. And the glass shines like a brilliant star. It's not the lamp that shines like the brilliant star, it's the glass that shines like the brilliant star, because what is in the lamp is indeed the ultimate source. But the glass shines like a brilliant star, so during my life, during my actions, whatever I do, my exemplary life is about bringing this light and making it shine further like a brilliant star. Now we think of us as evolvers, it adds yet one more dimension. And lit by the oil of the sacred tree, the olive, And at that point, I saw the sacred tree not as an olive tree. I saw it as my circulation system. Because our circulation system is the shape of a perfect tree. Every little veinlet on one side has its corresponding veinlet on the other, which is why it's the sacred tree, neither of the east nor of the west, so it's perfectly balanced. And then he said, this oil is luminous, even though fire has not touched it. Now, the sacred tree, the olive, perfectly balanced. What is the shape of my heart? It's the olive. So while my heart is beating, this luminous fluid is flowing through my being. I am living, I'm gaining knowledge, I am adding, I'm causing evolution, I'm doing everything, but I'm growing in light. Now, what is this luminous fluid? When you filter blood, it's a luminous fluid, plasma. So now this parable is telling me about the way I live and how I gain knowledge and how I grow in light and how I make that lamp shine further like a brilliant star. This is my linkage with the Creator. This is why I am here. And he says, even though fire has scarcely touched it, this oil is luminous. And he says, light upon light does the Creator guide unto his light those whom he chooses. And that's when I could see that there were stages upon stages upon stages. And those are the 10 stages of the soul that I've been sharing with you about. And we are at stage 9. So I've done a full webinar on this parable of light, and it is on our YouTube channel. So please go back and revisit it, and I've covered it in great more detail than I have done now. But today we are looking at this parable of light with Cyrus and Luminous from the context of stage 9. And so at stage 9, when the soul is now within the ocean of light, you can now discover further interpretations of this parable that help complete the picture, Cyrus says. He says, so far in stage 9, you have come across words like pure unity, oneness, light, the source, the origin, uniformity, absolute truth, and boundless love. These are some of the words we have come across as core attributes. He said the parable of light projects all these attributes. He says the niche, where life energy flows to the physical body, is there. He said it is the source point of the body. It is the linkage of the body with the source. So there's your niche. He said the lamp is synonymous with light. And the lamp has a flame that gives off light. But as we said earlier, this light is completely uniform. So accordingly, the parable says, this oil is luminous. A luminous fluid gives off even and uniform light. A flame does not give off uniform light, but a luminous fluid does. So again, if we dig into the parable of light from this perspective, that luminous fluid now gives us further clues. He said the parable says, even though fire has not touched it. So fire has not touched the luminous oil, but it's giving off this uniform light. So the parable says, think of the light, but focus your attention away from the exoteric concept of fire and look at the luminous fluid from the esoteric concept of uniformity of light. He said the lamp is covered with glass, and the glass is absolutely clear. So he said the concept of absolute clarity of the light is revealed here in stage 9, and you're also seeing it in the parable of light. And he said the glass shines like a brilliant star. That's what the parable says. He said, therefore, this light of the brilliant star emanates from pure clarity of the glass. So all the pieces we've been learning about stage 9 are now tying into this. So he said, you see how the parable opens up such broader aspects of the light now. And of course, he said the brilliant star is also an expression of the underlying power of this light, which goes back to the power of life energy. Lit by the oil of the sacred tree, the olive. He said, you just described the sacred tree as a circulation system, which is driven by the heart, which is the shape of an olive. He said, this is where the flow of boundless love comes in. He said, you learned last class about the field of flow in your body because we have light, sensory, air, and flow. He said, you learned about the field of flow where the heart resides, which is why love is always synonymously associated with the heart because of the flow. And he said, the oil is a fluid. So once again, the parable speaks to the fluidity of the boundless love. It simply flows. And he said, this love resides within the life energy itself. Hence the oil is luminous, because life energy embodies this light. So, much deeper understanding now we have of the parable of light. Then he says, light upon light does the Creator guide unto His light those whom He chooses. And of course this relates to the ascension of the soul from stage to stage until it reaches the light of the Creator, which is at stage 9 and beyond. So you see how beautifully everything we have just discussed about the light of the Creator ties into the parable of light at this point. So Cyrus says you can now begin to see how all the concepts you've learned from stage 1 to stage 9 are tying back perfectly into this profound parable. That was a great explanation, I said to Luminous. I said, this is a wonderful way to look at parable of light with yet more depth. And I said, from all of us here today, I would like to thank you very much for sharing such enlightening thoughts with us. So my dear friends, we have just experienced in stage 9 a deep spiritual immersion into this stage, and we have so much to reflect on based on all the concepts that have been laid out for us, from the boundless love we learned about in the last class, to the unity of the Creator, the absolute unity, to light and all the dimensions of light, and to the very role of our souls as evolvers. So we have much to think about as we then progress into stage 10. And stage 10 is of course the last stage, and we will then conclude this series of webinars after we finish stage 10. So stay blessed, and I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to all of you for being here, for bringing your love, bringing your light, bringing your positive energy, and working together as one soul in understanding these very special, deep, and profound spiritual contexts. So I pray that the light of our Creator may always be with you, to help you, guide you, protect you, and love you always. Stay blessed.